Hello and welcome to Southeastern 14. I'm Chris Lee, joined by Blake Lovell and Max Barr. We are going to discuss the outcomes of 4 SEC basketball games from Wednesday night, January the 24th. Before we do that, a reminder, this episode presented by BetOnline. It is playoff time. The road to Vegas goes through San Francisco and Baltimore. BetOnline is your number one source for playoff football odds, stats, trends, and lines, with everything from point spreads to hundreds of player performance props. You get all that at BetOnline. Head to BetOnline today. Stay updated on all the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, we always go in order of tip-off as we recap these games. So for that reason, and boy, there were a couple of good games last night. And one of them was the one in Athens where Georgia held off LSU. Georgia had it nearly sewn up, guys. And LSU, I think, had 3 straight, I don't know if it's 3 straight, but 3 key 3-point possessions down the stretch. Some of those were 3-point plays. At least one of those was a 3-pointer. I get the order of that mixed up a little bit. But nonetheless, LSU made a late comeback, and then Max Barr, Russell Chewa took over at the end. Or actually, it was him that had the putback, right?
Yes. Yeah, that atmosphere was wild. I mean, some of the crowd reactions from this game were just phenomenal. First off, though, where was my guy Tyrell Ward? I've been singing his praises lately off the bench, and he gets I don't know if he was a healthy scratch or if he didn't play. I don't know why. There was no injury report. Also, Carlos Stewart was out, so LSU was a little bit shorthanded in the backcourt. I thought that the will to find a way to win when Abdur-Rahim is not making threes was impressive. I feel like in years past, this is not a game that Georgia would have won. Silas Demary continues to be the best guard on this team. 6 of 6 from the free throw line, just ultra aggressive. I've been calling him a middle linebacker out there. I love his physicality. But this one was what? It was a 9-point game with 5 minutes left, and then LSU comes all the way back and actually takes the lead with 15 seconds left. So phenomenal fight from LSU. Mike White actually said that this is one of the best defenses that his team has played all year. So I don't think we've been given the LSU defense enough credit because they have really been stout. But hey, great win for Mike White. This is a win the program needed in front of a great crowd. Credit to both teams here for a really competitive game.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're LSU, you feel okay. You obviously love to win, but without Ward, Stewart hasn't played the past 5 or 6 games. So I still think LSU's in a good spot, but I think what stands out is they just don't have a lot of room for error when it comes to being beyond Jalen Cook and Jordan Wright. And, again, that's where not having a Ward or someone like that that's that little extra something that maybe helps you win. And they shot the ball really well. As you said, to make 10 threes on the road in the SEC is not an easy thing to do and shoot 44%. Both teams turned it over quite a bit here. Didn't shoot it as well. Rarity. Didn't shoot it anywhere near as well inside the arc as they did outside. But went 12 of 34 from 2. But for Georgia, this is a team that I'm just going to keep saying it. Like it is, Mike White has figured out a way to take a team that had no idea how to win a couple years ago, a program that just had no idea how to get there. Even last year, you go back, they won some close games last year, start to build a little bit of momentum. So at least there's some guys on the roster that figured out how they needed to win games. And I think we've just seen that pay off this year, even though there are new pieces in place, but there are some guys who are back, and just figuring out how to win games can be a hard thing to do when you've been beaten as much as this program has been beaten over the past, several years or whatever, and kind of have the season that they had. And so to win as many close games now as they have this year, they beat Wake Forest by 3. They beat Florida State by 2. That was the furious comeback. They win that road game at South Carolina. Now they find a way to hold on to win a home game against LSU. And I just think that shows you. Yeah, the Tennessee game didn't work out, but they had their chances, and you're not going to win every single one of them. But I just think that's where there's a lot more trust, a lot more confidence in what this Georgia team can do now. They are all confident in that when they find themselves in these situations, they can find ways to win. And we saw it again, whether it's she was stepping up and making the play he made or other guys doing this or that. Like they're confident now. And here they are at 4-2 in the league. Huge road game on Saturday against Florida, which we'll preview. But yeah, I still think Jordan Wright's shot at the end should count for fantasy purposes. But
boy, it's a shame that one didn't go down.
It's a real shame, in my opinion, that it didn't go down because I could have used that. But as we'll see, it would not have mattered one bit based on the current standings. But good win for Georgia.
Yeah, my thoughts on that. I have thought for a while that Georgia is an NIT level team. And I still think that. I think I look at this roster, certainly does not compare to the top 3 or 4 teams in the league. But what Mike White has done is put together a pretty fair 9-man rotation. Chiwa made the play last night. Max, one of your guys, Demary, is really, really playing well. Really playing well. Athletic. Gave him 15 last night, as you pointed out. Sometimes it's an RJ Melendez or a Blue Cane or somebody that steps up. I say this is an NIT team, but net rankings this morning, Georgia at 78. That doesn't get you in the tournament if it's selected today, but what it does is it gets you in range. And in games coming up at Florida, Alabama, South Carolina, the latter 2 are at home. At Mississippi State, you get a couple of those. You're right there. You may be knocking on the door, maybe on the bubble, maybe on the wrong side of the bubble, but you're getting close with plenty of games to play. I think that's a great spot for Georgia to be in. I think Mike White has done a terrific job. All right, now on to the main event.
Whew.
My goodness, if you were not watching Alabama and Auburn, I feel like a lot of times we hype up games. We say, I can't wait to watch this one. And then just something happens. One team runs away from it. The game is unexpectedly not what we thought. No, the only thing I would have thought about this game is that, especially as fast as it was played at times, that this one might be in the 80s or the 90s. The score is a little lower than I thought. But my goodness, guys, this game was so much fun to watch. Johni Broome had what would have been probably gone down in Auburn history as a performance for the ages. Had Auburn won at the end, but he was fantastic last night. Alabama was called out by its coach, Nate Oates, earlier in the week. I can't remember the exact comments, but basically it was like, are we ready to win one of these type of games? I don't know. Alabama held on at the last. Grant Nelson, I thought, was terrific in that one. Mark Sears seems to be pretty well recovered from that ankle injury last week based on the way he moved and based on his output, 22 points and 8 assists. All right, our man Blake, we got to give our man props. He was the one of the 3 of us that picked against Auburn, went for Alabama. He wound up being right. But look, all of us that watched this game just we're loving what we saw. It was so much fun to watch.
Yeah, someone would say that if they got the pick wrong because they need something to lean on. Look, again, I picked Alabama because otherwise, Auburn fans would have knew it was completely done for then. Because if we had all picked Auburn, Auburn would have had 0 chance of winning this game. They still had a chance with me picking Alabama. So that was the whole point here. But was I surprised Alabama won? No, because guess who called it? Who called it, Chris?
I think you just told everyone who called it.
Wasn't me. Who else called it? The cult of computers.
That's right. That's right.
They said Alabama is going to win. The cult of computers. Max is snoozing because they're
never wrong.
They're never wrong.
Nope.
And so the computers called this thing, and so they were, hitting all the mechanical buttons. They were watching this game with a stern eye, and they knew what was coming in this one. But in all seriousness, I am excited to see the overreaction to Auburn in this game. and how bad they are now because they lost the game on the road by 4 against Alabama. Because we all know it's coming. I did not change my tune on either of these teams after this game. I think both of them are Sweet 16 beyond good. I thought these were two really good teams playing a good game of basketball, and it just so happened that Alabama was the team that made more plays. And it wasn't just, one guy. And I think that's the key for Alabama now moving forward. How many big plays did Grant Nelson make towards the end of that game? How many big plays did Rylan Griffin make throughout the course of that game? How many big shots did Latrell Wrightsell make in that game? How many big plays did Mark Sears make in that game? Not just scoring, but finding the right guy at the right time, had 8 assists. That's my point with Alabama. It can't just be one guy. It can't just be a couple guys. And all year long, we've seen that they have different guys that can step up at various points. Even when you have a game where Aaron Estrada does not score, you still find a way to beat an elite Auburn team without him scoring. And it's just because of all the different guys that step up and make plays. And we saw that here. And I think that just to me speaks to what Alabama can be when they defend, when they're able to find good shots, when they're able to get some second chance opportunities, 16 offensive rebounds in this game. And I just thought that was it here, is just seeing the different contributions. For anybody that had any questions about Alabama, the fact is they had key contributions from multiple guys, and that's why they're good. They're not just good because they have Mark Sears. They're good because they have so many other guys that can step up, even when a guy is not having his best game. And we saw that in this situation here. And on the Auburn front, I told you guys my hesitation with Auburn in a game like this was that they would go on the road and not shoot it well. And they went on the road and didn't shoot it well. They went 5 of 25 from 3. Do I think Auburn's a bad shooting team? No. They just played on the road and went 5 of 25 from 3. Guess who else went 5 of 25 from 3 against Alabama on the road? South Carolina. They did the same thing, the exact same number, 5 of 25. And so you look at it from that standpoint, I still look at Auburn and see them as a team that can win a lot of games. It's a rivalry game. That atmosphere was ridiculous. And these are two high quality, high caliber basketball teams coming out and played a really good game here.
My apologies, Auburn fans, Auburn Nation.
Yeah, let's call it. You're the one who did this, really, if you think about it.
Brutality. That was Chris and I's doing. Yes. We apologize. But on a serious note, what a game. This was one of those games where it finishes and I felt like I played in it. I think I had a headache last night because of how close I kept getting to my TV screen. I was so into this game. I'd been waiting for this thing for weeks, and it lived up to it. I thought that down the stretch, Trey Donaldson had to be in the game more. That was one of my biggest takeaways coming from an Auburn's perspective. Aiden Holloway wasn't having his best game, and Trey Donaldson, he's got to play more than 18 minutes. He's just gotta. I think Bruce Pearl said that actually in his post game. Said he should have probably played Trey Donaldson a little bit more. Great effort on the glass from Alabama. Great effort. I mean, that shows how hard they fought in this game. The energy that they played with. Latrell Wrightsell, give him the MVP. Give him the game ball. Give him everything he needs, because what a game. 9 rebounds, 4 offensive rebounds for the 6'3" guard. Are you kidding me? What an effort. Anytime that you get 9 threes out of Wrightsell and Griffin, Alabama's not losing many of those games. I'll tell you that much. I thought it was a great effort by Auburn to come back after being in such a hole. It wasn't Jalen Williams' best game. It wasn't Holloway's best game. It wasn't Katie Johnson's best game, but you saw that they have a lot of depth. I think you got to give credit to both teams. Alabama shot the lights out. They're going to be able to shoot the lights out in pretty much most of their games. You're going to have to win on the glass and close out to shooters a little bit better. I can't believe what I saw in that second half, just how entertaining the game, the intensity of it. We had technicals, throwing basketballs at the opponent. I love all that stuff. I love it. Give me all the intensity. It felt like a boxing match out there. I love it. What a game. What a game. Sorry, Auburn fans, probably mush you, but what a game.
We got to give Max a cold rag or something, man. We got Cool him off a little bit over there.
I'm fired up.
Play of the night. Did you see that time where Grant Nelson went left baseline and went up to dunk and kind of turned around and reversed it and got fouled and the crowd just lost it?
I think Nelson
that was one of those
nightmares about it.
Yeah, I mean, there were several, and then I think the other thing, Rylan Griffin has sort of been the X factor for them lately. I mean, I'm not going to say they were going to get steamrolled in Knoxville, but he didn't have his normal game. But it seems like, if I recall correctly, the Missouri game last week, that was kind of close, and he started splashing a bunch of threes, and they pulled away at the end. The Mississippi State game, the game before that, where Alabama won on the road, he gave him 17. 3-point shooting was off that night, but he's been a kid lately that really has stepped up, and they've got a bunch of guys, and that's what makes him so tough to guard. The scoring can come from a bunch of places. I cannot wait for the rematch of this in Auburn. Guys, we gotta at some point, this needs to be on the bucket list for our channel. We need to attend an Iron Bowl of basketball in person, because I've never done that. In fact, I haven't for football either.
I think I would
feel like we need a sponsor or somebody out there to help make this happen. Because I was like, man, how cool would it have been to be in that building last night? And the return trip to Neville, you can bet they'll bring it too.
Well, you guys can go. Just don't let you pick games, because my goodness, you're going to set off the opposing fan base there when you pick their team. Yikes. Anyways, it's something nowadays. And again, credit to Nate Oates and Bruce Pearl, because they have made this what it is. Just a must-see game every time these two teams play, just because of how successful the programs have been and how far both of them have come in such a, really short amount of time when you think about it. Remarkable stuff there. And, I mean, like I said, I think both teams are really good. I would not be overreacting if I'm Auburn. Alabama, defensive efficiency numbers have gone up, thank goodness, because, man, I'd hate for them to be sitting here at 90 in defensive efficiency, because, boy, that would lead to a conversation. But it's gone up to 56 now. So you think about the jump they've made over the past several weeks. They were way down there. But, so playing better defense, scoring the ball as well as they are. Alabama is legit. Auburn is legit.
Just real quick before we move on.
Go ahead, Max. Yeah.
I just want to just take a little moment of appreciation for this game, and to remember that in July and August, when the only sport on the television is the regional scene of the Little League World Series and the opening rounds of the TBT basketball tournament, I'm just so grateful that we are in this right now. We are in the heart. It's not quite yet February where we're like, oh, it's going to be March in a few weeks. But it's also not quite like, oh, well, we just started conference play. No, this is where everyone starts to get a little fatigued, starts to get tough. Not here at Southeastern 14. I've been waiting for this time for months, and we're here now. I'm fired up. I could run through a brick wall right now.
What are you going to do with yourself until these two teams play again on February the 7th? My goodness, we're going to have to, I don't know what we're going to do with you.
Well, we got a whole bunch of games on Saturday, so I just don't know what I'm doing with myself for 2 days, and then I'm good on Saturday.
We've established I can't wait to Alabama, Kentucky, so we're just passing.
Chris is sitting out.
Don't even get me started.
In all seriousness, like Blake, you and I were watching SEC basketball before our man Max here was born. Could you ever have imagined, now, at Alabama as it existed, Alabama's always been a very historically underrated program. It just gets overshadowed by football. And this is where I think the SEC network, and it being around over a decade now, has gotten people. And it's doing the same thing for baseball. It used to be you couldn't watch all these games, but now I think that has helped. But the engagement, that arena last night, again, I wanted to be in it, to be there and see it. Blake, could you have ever imagined? Again, Alabama's brought the juice at times, has had great teams. Auburn, it's been really spotty until Bruce Pearl got there. But could you have ever conceived of a basketball atmosphere between Alabama and Auburn like we saw last night?
I mean, I know what you're asking. I would say yes, though, just because I think all it takes is a great coach. And I would have thought it was much tougher to ever get there for Auburn than it would have been for Alabama, like you said. And I think that's where Alabama's they've been there, right? But then to Auburn to actually get to a Final Four, that changes everything. And to see what Bruce Pearl's done since he took over there, yeah, I mean, it's like I said earlier, I think it's what's been built by Bruce Pearl and Nate Oates that has led to these games, every single game they play being must see. And yeah, I mean, you talk football. And I said years ago, and people who have watched my stuff before I started doing the stuff we do at Southeastern 14 will tell you. I said there are not two more underrated basketball fan bases than Alabama and Auburn. And it's proven itself true, I think. And people laugh at that and say, well, obviously football's so number one, ha ha ha. Yeah, but that doesn't have anything to do with the statement. I still think they're two of the most underrated basketball fan bases out there because they care about their basketball. And it's easier to care when you're winning and not just getting drubbed the way that, Auburn's getting drubbed for years there. Just bottom of the SEC, bottom of the SEC. Alabama always felt like they're just waiting to get to that upper tier, just kind of sitting in the middle there. Couldn't ever really quite, get to that top point. Well, now they've won multiple SEC championships past couple of years. They're the number one seed in the tournament last year, all those things. So it all builds, but it's easy to do that when you just can get a great coach in there. You find a way to get a great coach, you get great players, and it all kind of takes off from there. So, yeah, both these programs sitting in a great spot right now.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Our man Blake talks about the cult of computers. And boy, if there's a guy that knows a cult when he watches one, it's Blake. And I'm the resident computer guy here.
Who'd you pick in this game?
Well, that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
I love my computers, but to a point. I was not on the Florida prediction video, but I told you my pick and I told you why. I said, I know what the computers have said about Florida. They said them last year. I think this team is better than last year's team, but I need a prove it moment. Florida, I think, got its last night. That team was really good. It controlled that game against Mississippi State. I don't know about from start to finish, but certainly I don't think there was ever a time in the second half where I guess it got close late, but it felt like too little too late. Max, I think Florida was so balanced last night, and maybe this is the game that could kind of jumpstart Florida and convince us it's the kind of team the computers have been telling us that it is.
Yeah, if you're looking for overreactions, you're going to find one right here, right now.
Oh, boy. I knew you guys are going to overreact to this, so I'm going to try to get you back to the middle in a minute. Okay, go ahead.
I'm just joking. I like the result here with Florida. I'm going to keep every time he performs well, I'm going to call him out. My Mr. Cool, Calm, and Collected, Zion Pullen. He only has one turnover in his last 105 minutes of basketball. That's unbelievable. He's playing 35 minutes every game. The guy does not turn the ball over, and he brings the ball up like every possession. I thought that this was where Mississippi State really could have used Keshawn Murphy. Really could have used an extra body down low. Florida just, we know how good of a rebounding team they are and how they have that nice rotation of big men with Condon really playing well as a freshman. Kind of wore down Mississippi State. Over the course of the game, we actually saw Chris Jans go to a Jimmy Bell and Tolu Smith lineup for the first time all season. So that goes to show just the impact that the Florida big men were having on this game. Another one of these instances where we get an injury kind of report after the game that we had no clue going into it. Mississippi State guard Shaq Moore had the flu this week, didn't practice at all. Jans was quoted saying he was running on fumes in this game. And that's, on the road for one of your primary ball handlers to have the flu and not be practicing all week, that has a major impact on the outcome of this game, especially being on the road. Josh Hubbard needs some help. 5 of 17 from 3. He was just kind of forcing it, trying to get back in the game. They didn't have many options to go to for scoring. Good result for Florida, though. Blake, we said in that preview, we were like, I want to be on the good side of when Golden finally gets that top 50 win. I'm happy I picked the right one here. Haven't picked anything right in what feels like years. So, yeah, Good result for Florida. Mississippi State's going to be tough to win on the road with the lack of guard scoring. What do you see, Blake?
Well, it's top 50 for now. That's where I would
True.
Mississippi State's got a brutal upcoming schedule, and that's where, like, Florida, you need to be rooting for Mississippi State at this point because they got Auburn at home, at Ole Miss, at Alabama the next 3 games. So you need to hope that there's not a 4-game slide here for Mississippi State because then, of course, that win doesn't look as good. And as we said, Florida's a team that needs good wins. And so, yes, this was a step in the right direction to prove you can actually pull away, win a game like this. They had their chance against Kentucky. We talked about that. Couldn't quite pull it out. But to get this one was nice, even though Mississippi State is 2-4 in the SEC. They're better than the record indicates. But like we said, they got a big stretch coming up here. And where Chris went wrong was picking Mississippi State on the road because that's what the basis of what Max and I talked about was in the preview. They have just not played well on the road.
They still haven't won.
That's all there is. And it's not even just winning. They just haven't played well. And I think when you look at it that way, they only scored 59 points at Georgia Tech. They had 62 points at South Carolina. Give South Carolina credit for winning that one. And again, Mississippi State just didn't play well enough to win. Didn't play well at Kentucky. Didn't play well here on the road against Florida. So I just think they're going to maybe be one of those teams where they just don't play well on the road. And we'll see if that's enough to get them to the tournament. We had that discussion in the mailbag last week and all that. So, this was, again, it's a significant win for Florida just based on the fact they needed a good win. They got it. The talent's there. We talked about it all season long. It's nice to see them actually making that push. And I think the thing that continues to stand out with Florida is, hey, we probably would not expect Florida to win games like this with Riley Kugel scoring 4 points. But, that's kind of been the name of the game this season is that it's been about other guys. And, they just need to keep – they can be so good offensively. And I think that's just what always stands out with them. It's just, like other teams, though, just keep finding ways to improve defensively game after game after game. And I know Mississippi State, grabbed a lot of rebounds here, but it's Mississippi State. That's kind of what you expect with them. But, yeah, this was a nice win for Florida. We've liked the roster all season. We just wanted to see them win games like this and maybe do it in a fashion that they did it in. That was also, I think, a bonus. And so, the Gators sitting in a good spot ahead of what has somehow become one of the bigger games of the weekend when they host Georgia on Saturday.
Blake's favorite thing in the world, the net, has Mississippi State 42 and Florida 43 as of this morning. So both teams still by the computers in the mix to get there. I think both teams are good enough to get there being the tournament. So
where'd you get those net rankings from, Chris? Did you get it from the official NCAA website?
I did. There's a site. It's called ncaa.com/rankings/basketball/ I won't give you the rest in the interest of time. But those things can be found on the internet, Blake.
Well, my point is,
I know you're anti-technology and all, but it's out there.
You went wrong, Chris, because you went to the NCAA's website to find the net rankings, when what you could have easily done is gone to @14 Southeastern on Twitter to find the net rankings because we post them after every set of games. Why are you going to support the NCAA when you can go support Southeastern 14 on Twitter @14 Southeastern? Come on, Chris. Get on board.
I will repent.
That was good, Blake. That got me fired
error of my ways. That's like there's a little reverend in there. The Reverend Blake Lovell.
Well,
preaching it.
There you have it. So on to the next one. Talk about running on fumes.
Well, there's no salvation for Arkansas basketball, it would appear. In what I thought was the most predictable game of the night, Arkansas got obliterated at Ole Miss. Felt like a get-right game for Ole Miss. I just don't trust Arkansas.
Well, let's be fair, though.
Well, let's be fair. Tremont Mark was out with migraines. We didn't know that was coming. They still got beat by 26.
Brazil played a half.
That's true.
I get it.
Yeah.
I'm making sure we add the context because we know if we don't, we will hear about it. So just adding the context that Mark did not play. And when you take Tremont Mark off this team, good luck trying to figure out what you're getting. And it's just the truth. Like I'm not knocking anybody. It's just Muss himself. I mean, how many guys are they playing at this point? They're playing everybody plus, I don't know who. Like, they are playing everybody they can to try to figure this out, and it's just not working. And when you take away Tremont Mark, I know Brazil's not had the best stretch of games, but you take these guys out of the mix, it's just your problem that was already at a 10, it's at a 12. Like, what do you do at that point? Because you just don't have the consistency anywhere right now, elsewhere. And so, yeah, I hate to turn it to Arkansas, but let's call it what it is. Like, this continues just to be the most, you can't look away, right? Like, it's just one of those things where you just cannot look away with whatever's going on with this Arkansas team. But for Ole Miss, I mean, we talk about guys stepping up. I mean, it's just, I think, look, Ole Miss, to me, Ole Miss and Mississippi State could be very similar this season in that these are two teams that, boy, they are going to feast on their home games, but when they go on the road, all bets are off. I know Alabama beat Mississippi State at home, but this was Ole Miss doing what they should have done to Arkansas, all things considered, given the scenario. And I think that is something you can take away for Ole Miss, is that they didn't come just let Arkansas hang around here. They put the foot down and said, all right, it's time. Like, it's time for us to go out and just dominate this team. And that's what they did. And so credit to all those older guys. That's what continues to stand out to me about this Ole Miss team. We talk about South Carolina being older. Ole Miss is older. That's been one of the reasons why these teams have made their jump. But we'll see if that continues. But I don't have a lot to add from an X's and O's standpoint here. This was just one team just completely taking it to the other.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to go about it too. I don't think this is a game you should break down from a statistical X and O, whatever you want to call it, type of standpoint. This was probably the team in Arkansas that has the least amount of identity, now losing the only bit of identity they had with Tremont Mark, going on the road against a team that hasn't lost at home. Perfect storm. Like Ole Miss has had in the past few weeks, they shoot way better at home than they do on the road. Shoot 37% from three, only make 7, but didn't take a lot. One storyline here for Ole Miss is bench support guard TJ Caldwell went down with a hard fall, and Chris Beard said that despite Caldwell not really playing much lately, he's really started to come on and practice and find his confidence, and thought that he was going to take a leap here pretty soon. And so for an already thin Mississippi team that only gets, I don't even know how much scoring they get outside of that top 4 they have, this just kind of makes the margin of error a little bit slimmer for Ole Miss. But I mean, yeah, Blake, you pretty much nailed it with your Arkansas analysis. I don't have much to add. They were missing their best player, and on the road, it was a perfect storm for, like you said, Chris, an Ole Miss get right spot. So, yeah.
Well, Ole Miss's guards were terrific last night. Murrell and Murray were really good. Flanigan had a kind of an all-around bounce-back game after he just wasn't very
Double-double
good at Auburn. Yeah, in a spot where, to be fair to Alan Flanigan, that was always going to be a tough spot coming back to Auburn for a big game. But Brazil, that injury happened, I think it was a knee, correct, Max?
His knee soreness is how it was.
Okay.
Said.
Was that the play when he halfway turned a cartwheel after getting undercut? You remember the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I don't know if it was a specific play or if it was rather like an inflammation soreness type of thing rather than just like a one incident. I'm not sure. There wasn't much clarity on it post game.
Yeah, what a weird year. I mean, that happens. Yeah. You have, I mean, how many times have we had a guy ruled out with migraines? That might be a first in the history of our channel. I want to ask you guys something. I'll start with Blake. I think it was Jimmy Dykes calling the game last night. He felt like it's not a lack of effort. I don't know about that. I watched a team like Houston that just has dogs and gets after it. And I don't see that out of Arkansas on the defensive end. But the shooting was a thing brought up before the season. Again, I'm not really buying it, but is there something there?
I mean, there's something somewhere. That's the best answer I got for you. Like, if I knew the answer, then Muss would be hiring me as a consultant, because they don't have the answers either. So I think we could pick apart so many different things with this team and try to figure out if it's this or that. Yeah. But I think sometimes it just comes down to the pieces aren't clicking together for various reasons, and this is what you get when that happens. Because otherwise, like I said, Muss would not be playing guys. The minutes distribution would not be what they are, because clearly they're trying everything they can, but they're just not getting it from this team right now.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I agree with Blake. I don't think there's much extra to add.
Smart man.
Yeah. Should have done that on the Alabama Auburn pick.
Should have. All right, quick fantasy update. Then we got to get out of here. Max, I'm going to pull this up for you guys, but let's just call it what it is. Okay. Chris complained all last week about not getting the first pick. And so he gets the first pick this time. Johni Broome comes through with a huge game. I'll take the banner off here so you can see the actual names here. Again, this is what complaining gets you in the world. Okay. Sometimes you just complain until you get your way. And that's what Chris has done. He complained until he got his way with the first pick. And now here he sits. The Kentucky Monstars are coming back with a vengeance. I'm just going to let you know. They will be back.
All I have to say is I believe if we're going by trends, Chris is 0-1 when leading after the Wednesday games. That's all I want to say.
That's a good point, too. That's a great point.
Chris, you're muted.
Good.
Which is
keep him muted.
The same thing that your team is going to do on Saturday.
Keep him muted.
The scoreboard talks and losers walk. Did I complain about
you
draft
said
order
that last week, and then who wound up being the
true
loser?
as it was.
So
it was true for a minute last week.
I'm rooting for Max at this point because I don't.
Let's go.
Well, let me tell you,
I'm all in on Max Barr's team. So.
Our man, the Reverend Blake Lovell, claims moral high ground. Ladies and gentlemen, I did nothing that either of these two would not have done to get a competitive advantage. Did I complain about the draft order, which clearly was rigged last week in the favor of one Blake Lovell? Yes, I did. Did the universe find a moral order that was more right this week? Yes, it did. As you can see by the scoreboard. There's strategy in this, guys. Reed Shepherd had a 5-point game. That's all I had going into last night. Did you ever watch White Men Can't Jump?
Look in my eyes. What do you see? Chris's cult of computers.
Woody Harrelson sandbagged everybody. And then what did he do? He cleaned up. Reed Shepherd sandbagged everybody on Tuesday night. He set you up. He hadn't even had me believe in it. And then here we are.
All right. We're done here.
Follow our Twitter for fantasy updates weekly.
At 14 Southeastern.
All right. Thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you don't mind. It's free. Helps us out. Hit the like button. Tell a friend. And we will be here to preview the games for the weekend. Wrap those up. I hope you had fun watching. We sure had fun doing it. For Blake Lovell and Max Barr, I'm Chris Lee. This is Southeastern 14, presented by BetOnline.